Hi, fourth graders. Thought I'd do a real quick lesson with you on 11.5. I was looking at some results from 11.4. We did that in class, just maybe thinking this might help a little bit more. So the lesson today is titled Number Lines and Equivalent Fractions, and there's a couple things I want you to keep in mind when you're talking about number lines. A lot of people forget. So let's go over the basics of a number line. Kind of works like a fraction bar in many ways. You guys see that? Yeah. All right. So number lines always begin and end, sort of. They actually can continue on in multiple directions. But for this point, I want you to remember that number lines always start with 0 at this point, and then they're also going to end in 1. That's typically how it's done. So if we did a really quick, easy number line, dividing it in half, we know that this is 1/2. This 2, as you can remember, is called the denominator. Really important. It tells me that there's 2 spots on this number line. 1, 2. Now you might be going, what about 0? Now let's that rule to 0. Not really there. We could change this fraction. So again, remember the denominator is the most important part in this case. So if I were to change the fraction and add a few more numbers to it, so it's kind of cool. You can see this. Maybe my assistant here would like to teach, I'm not sure. You can divide it into 4s. So here we go. I took that half and I divided it in half once again. So now I have 0, 1, 2, 3, and this really means 4/4. And we know that has another name of 1. All of these would be represented with 4 as a denominator underneath. So this is the first one. Second one, or another name for 2/4 is 1/2, 3/4, and then finally 4/4, our last one. You can keep doing the same thing, just changing the numbers of units, the denominator. Ooh. Hold on a minute. Sun sock not working very well. Okay, I could take this quarter and I could chop them in half one more time. So now let's start over from the beginning. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We talked about factors and multiples last week. You probably noticed a pattern. I bet you have. This used to be 2, 1, 2. Then it went to 2, 4. So 4, 4 again is 1. 2, 2 is 1. Now we have 8, 8. So these are all factors of 8. They're all multiples of 8. So we go ahead and put down the denominator, 1 over the top of 8, because that's the end mark here. Again, remember, that's the most important part of this number line to determine what your denominator will be. So if we start, we have other names. So remember we keep that benchmark fraction of half always in the middle. Last time you saw it, it was 2/4. Now it's 4/8. And again, here's our total. So these are called equivalent fractions on a number line. Now, you're probably going to see in your lesson today something that looks like, went through that, something that looks like this. Oops, hold on. Still figuring out my outdoor school platform. Kind of interesting, right? So the guide to practice says, if I'm looking at the book, and some of you might have the e-text open, that's great. So we're on lesson 11.5. It'll say, in 1 through 3, find equivalent fractions for each of the number lines. So they have a number line, as I reminded you again, starts at 0. Again, it actually goes in more directions than this, but for today, it's just going to be simple here. The number line is divided up. They're going to say 1 here. They're going to give you some clues. They're going to say this is 1/6. Then they're going to change it up. They're going to say this is 1/3. They're going to say this is 1/2. And this is going to be 4/6. Whoa. And 5/6. I'll just remember the other name for this is going to be 6/6. I know that because I've noticed a trend with my denominators, 1/6. We also know that 1/2 is going to be that benchmark fraction. So what is less than 1/2, what is greater than 1/2? If you think about it, another name for 1/2 using this denominator of 6 would be 3/6. Okay. 1/3 is tricky. Notice that there's no other thirds on this line, right? So the question says, name the equivalent fraction for 1/3. Here's where it is. They want this here. What could that be? Well, take a look. Again, denominator. I keep stressing this because I think it's really important. If this is 1/6, this is 3/6, obviously what falls between? You got it. This is going to be 2/6. So another name for 1/3 is 2/6. Okay, and then it continues on. So you're going to have to use these clues on the number line. The next question is, what is equivalent for 1/2? We already did that. We already know that half of 6 is 3. And then finally 3, name the equivalent fraction for 4/6. So we want an equivalent fraction for 4/6. So if you go over here, there's this really cool trick that we talked about. I'm going to use a different color. Uh-oh, we might have some interference. I can hear it.
No, he hasn't. Back to the lesson.
Back to the lesson. We have this 3rd marked here, this 0 marked here, this other strange mark here, and this mark here. So if you can kind of see those things, you've got 0, 1/3. What's another name for this? Well, 1. This could be 2/3. Note, I know this because of the 3 and the 3. The 3 denominator, again, is telling me that 1/2, 3/3, will be over here. That's my determination.
And also, I'm just going to interject. Since 4/6 is twice as much as 2/6, it means that 1/3 is, or 2/3 is going to be twice as much as 1/3.
Oh, I like that ad.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
no problem.
By the way, what you don't see is my son behind the camera.
Algebra.
He likes math too. That's real quick. That's what today's lesson's about. Hope this helps. I'll keep trying to improve my video skills. Bye, y'all.